Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. So I am Christian Joseph G. Siose, Section B is C1B. So I'm here to present my report.
So the topic that we're going to tackle about is about Bankaw's Revolt of Leyte in 1622. Next is the Revolt of Lodia in 1643. Third one is the Revolt of Dabao in 1650s. Sumoroy's Revolt of Samar in 1649 to 1650. And of course, lastly, the Maniago's Revolt, which is in Pampanga in 1660. So let's go first to Bankaw's Revolt of Leyte in 1622. So, the cause of Bankaw's Revolt in Leyte, which is it is an return to native religion after baptism. So the people involved here in this revolution, which is Bankaw, the leader of this rebellion, so was the age of chieftain of Limasawa. Next is Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, which is an Spanish navigator and governor. And lastly, Father Melchor de Vera. So we're going to talk a lot about this topic. So what happened? So in 1565, Miguel Lopez arrived in the Philippines, so in the town of Carigara, which is known as Southern Leyte. So as he arrived, he was warmly welcomed by the Dato of Carigara, which is Dato Bankaw. So Dato Bankaw was one of the first converts, and most of Carigara was also baptized soon after he was baptized. So it's said that the priest characterized them as loyal to Christian or Spain. And after 50 years had passed, Dato Bangkaw's baptism, he wanted to change back his previous religion. So he started to change and started to want to go back to his previous religion. So with the persuasion of Babaylan Tamblot, he finally made his mind. And together with a Babaylan named Pagali and his children, so he built a temple for Diwata, and he incited people from six towns to participate in the revolt. So it is believed that Pagali used some magic to attract followers and thought that they could turn the Spaniard into clay by hurling bits of earth at them. So what happened is Father Melchor de Vera learned this and went to Cebu to warn the Spanish authorities about this revolt that Bankaw is going, that Bankaw is leading. So, of course, Alcalde Mayor Carazo thought a way to prevent the revolt. The Spaniard offered peace at first, but they rejected the offer. Right? And because of that, the Spanish to Filipino forces pursued them in the hills and defeated them. Okay? Because they rejected the offer, there's a fight. So Bankaw, together with his son and Pagali, perished in the battle. Soon, his second son was beheaded as a traitor, and his daughter was taken as captive, and Bankaw's head was placed on a stake as a public warning to generate fear among the natives, so that there are no Filipino that will try again conduct an revolt. Okay, so that is the Bankaw's Revolt, late in 1652. Next is the Revolt of Lodia, which is in 1643. So in the Revolt of Lodia, the cause is Spanish oppression. The people involved here is Pedro Lodia, a native of Borneo who claimed to be a descendant of Raja Matanda. Also, Father Cristobal Enriquez. So, what happened here in the Revolt of Lodia? So, Pedro Lodia, who called himself the King of Tagalog, that he owned the Tagalog, no? So, he instigated the people of Malolos, Bulacan to rise in arms against the Spanish government. So, he was able to recruit a number of followers. But before he could carry out his plan, Father Cristobal Enriquez had already entreated the people to remain loyal fame, which Lodia was later on arrested and sent to Manila to be executed. So it is very sad that a lot of people has choose Spaniard over Philippines. Okay? So that is the Revolt of Lodia. Now, we're going to talk all about this, the Revolt of Dabao, which is in 1650s. So in the Revolt of Dabao, the cause of this revolution is about the controversial decree to send carpenters to the Cavite shipyard, which is the shipyard is the Spaniard. So the people involved here is, of course, Dabao, a Manobo chieftain in northern Mindanao, and Governor Diego Fajardo. Okay. So in the Revolt of Dabao, in order to success the plan of Dabao in his revolt to move freely among fellow Christians, so Dabao, who is called the Tricky Dabao due to his spontaneous tricks. So Dabao allowed himself to be baptized to the Catholic faith, and he convinced some new converts to join him in his plan to kill the religious and all the Spanish soldiers in the fort. So Dabao's opportunity to carry out his plot came as natives who stole a quantity of maize and rice were being handed down. So because of that, he offered himself to catch them. He took his men to act as a prisoner just when the men were going to be set in the stock for their punishment. So Dabao attacked the captain, and supposed prisoner joined him by taking out their concealed weapon. All Spaniards in the garrison were killed. Wow. But Governor Diego Fajardo was not offered an amnesty to the rebels to end the northern Mindanao unrest. So however, the rebels who surrendered were either hanged or slave or taken to Manila, so where they were sold to Spanish household. Right? So next is the Sumoroy Revolt of Samar in 1649 to 1650. So the cause of this revolution is the forced labor. The people involved here is Juan Sumoroy, which is the leader of this revolt in Palapag, Samar. So what happened here in the Sumor's revolt, Samar, 1649 1650, which is Governor Diego Fajardo's order, which involved the sending of men to Cavite shipyard. It's just related previously. So his hostilities began on June 1, 1649. So with the killing of the curate of the town, because of their not treating very well by the Spaniards. So Sumoroy and his follower has conducted a revolution against Spaniards because of the forced labor, right? And under Juan Sumoroy's leadership, the people of Palapag, Samar, rose in arms against the government. Because of that, the revolt spread to Albay and Camarines, Cebu, Masbate, Camiguin, and as far as northern Mindanao. Okay? And because of Sumoroy leadership, Sumoroy won several victories over the Spanish Filipino forces in battle. Right? At one time, the Spanish commander offered a large sum of money in exchange of Sumoroy's head, and the rebels sent him the head of the pig instead, because his victory in Sala. Now, in July 1650, so under cover of darkness and rainfall, the government forces staged an assault on the natives' forts, and the rebels were caught by surprise. So it sadly, that in that time also, the Sumoroy's mother perished also in the battle. And the revolt ended with individual surrender. The The rebels themselves killed Sumoroy and brought his head to the Spanish commander because they have no choice in order for them to survive. That's the story of Sumoroy. Next is the Maniago's revolt in Pampanga, which is 1660. So the cause of this revolution is a frequent recruitment of men to cut timber in the mountains and Bandala, and also it is related also, or it also an relatives of forced labor. So the people involved here is Francisco Maniago, a leader of the village in the Mexico Pampanga, who led a revolt in protest against forced labor and confiscation of rice by the Spaniards. Right? And also Governor Manrique de Lara, which is a chief of Arayat. So what happened here in Maniago's revolt of Pampanga in 1660? So during that time, Pampanga drew most of the attention from the Spanish religion order because of its relative wealth. So we all know that Pampanga is rich in resources. And they also bore to the burden of more tribute and forced labor in the rice spoliation. Because that they were made to work for 8 months under unfair conditions and were not paid for their labor and for the rice purchased from them. So it is relative from Sumoroy's revolt. Now, to show their sentiments against the government, the workers mutinied and set their campsite on fire. So they choose Don Francisco Maniago, a chief from the village of Mexico, to be their leader. Right? So what happened there, the armed rebels gathered in Lubao under Maniagos and another group made preparation in Bacolor. They closed the mouth river with stakes. So later, two other chiefs in Pangasinan, Ilocos, Cagayan were they sent asking them to join the uprising against the Spaniards in order to have a chances of winning, to higher chances of winning. And because of that, later elect a king of their own. So by the time of province of Pampanga revolt, so the government owned the local inhabitants more than 200,000 pesos due to unpaid rice purchase from the Bandala system. So because of that, the Spaniards tried to end the rebellion immediately because they knew that the Pampangueños had been trained in military art. Okay? Government Manrique de Lara began his maneuver with a show of force. So by bringing them with him 300 man in Macabebe. So seeing the well-armed Spaniards, so the Pampangueños showed cordiality, which caused other rebels to waver and distrust one another. So which Governor Lara called for Juan Macapagal, chief of Arayat, to a discussion. So De Lara treated him well and assured him a reward if he would side with the government, and Macapagal consequently accepted the offer. So as he went back to Arayat and organized a force to repress the rebel, so his defection discouraged other chiefs, which parish priests as well as mercenary soldiers were also employed to demoralize the rebels. And the Governor General, moreover, proposed a partial payment of 14,000 to the total amount of 200,000 pesos that the government owned to Pampangueños. So let's think it in 200,000 pesos, only 14,000 pesos had been proposed partial payment, which the Spaniards concluded an agreement with Maniago, which brought about peace in Pampanga. For the fear that the Pangasinan will strike back, so the Pampangueños themselves demanded two Spanish garrison in the province. So one in Lubao and another in Arayat. From then on, they never revolted against the colonial government because they had been offered peace. Right? So that is the discussion for our topic, which is the Bankaw's Revolt of Leyte, which is the cause of this revolt is the return by going back to his religion. Next is the Revolt of Lodia, the cause of this revolution, which is Spanish oppression. And next is the Revolt of Dabao, which the cause of this revolution, which is all about controversial decree to send carpenters to the Cavite shipyard. Right? So because of that, they are not treating well by the Spaniard. They had conducted a revolution. The next is Sumoroy's revolt, Samar, which is on forced labor. They had conducted a revolution, and there's a lot of success, victory, but in the end, it is so sad that Sumoroy just ended up losing through the surprise. And lastly, the Maniago's revolt in Pampanga, right? Which is the cause of this revolution, which was frequent recruitment meant to cut timber in the mountains of Bandala, which they had been okay when they settled about this, right? So that is all about my report. So thank you very much for listening.